With Elizabeth Williams, land expert, board member of the East Midlands Housing and Communities Board. Elizabeth, good afternoon to you.
Hello there. Just slight correction, I'm board member of the Centre for New Midlands.
Not a problem, rather than East. OK.
That's right, West Midlands.
Well, either way, we're glad to have you with us. Listen, I mean, Angela Rayner, like all politicians, make things sound rather simple. I'm pretty sure that what is needed here is anything but. Is that reasonable?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, I admire her gumption, shall we say, for having this target, but it's totally unrealistic. Just can't be delivered.
What is the problem then? Because, you know, we've all done this, haven't we? I mentioned it last week. You drive past a field and you go, there's a massive field there. Why don't they just build 500 houses in it? And you discover it's owned by the local authority, so it's not like some rich old duffer is sitting on it waiting for it to treble in value. What could go wrong? But plenty goes wrong because you drive past the same field in 5 years' time and it's still a field. What is happening here? What's going on, Elizabeth?
Well, I'd like to keep some of our fields, but not all of them.
True.
The problem is that, unfortunately, we have values have gone up in housing, but demand is slowing. You know, with all the economic pressures, people simply aren't buying houses, and builders build at the rate that they can sell.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest problem, but also that is directly linked to the construction costs. So construction costs are really high for various reasons. The biggest one is a skill shortage. We simply do not have enough people to build 1.5 million houses in the next 5 years, or the materials to do it. It has to be...
Yeah, go on, sorry.
Sorry, it has to be phased. You can't just... The cash has to come from somewhere to build these homes. If homes aren't selling at a rate enough to be able to start the next one, that actually is what dictates the delivery programme. Then we have all sorts of other issues. We have delays in planning, and it's not just about planners, it's about the local authority solicitors as well. We don't have enough of those. And Section 106 affordable housing is actually slowing every site that it impacts in the UK now because registered providers don't want the units.
I was talking to a small builder, a guy who would once upon a time just built 2 or 3 houses a year, and he had a crew of people to do that. And he was saying he would struggle to build one now because literally... Because he'd have a couple of guys on one job, and the others would, if they were the starting guys doing foundations, then they'd move on to the next one, and then so he had this worked out, and it was a nice business plan. He said he just can't do it, and the reason he can't do it is because he doesn't have anybody to do it. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. He said, I'm using guys that I've used for 20, 30 years, and they're great. He said, but there's not a new lot coming through. That seems to be a national problem as well.
Absolutely. I mean, and they're retiring.
Yeah.
And this is what we call, well, I believe it's from the Blair effect. So basically in school now, you're put on a university programme to get to university and be shackled with debt, when actually what we need is people learning trades and skills so they have a future and jobs when they come out of school. And if we want to build our way out of this crisis, we need to actually create builders. And that's the same for any industry that's struggling with staff, so the NHS, etc. We want kids using their hands and actually having a future. Apprenticeships are too late. By that time, they've been told construction is the last resort. They're disillusioned. And so are the people that are employing them. We have some excellent apprenticeship schemes, but it's too late at that age.
Yeah. I don't know what's gone wrong there, because when I was at school, and my uncle was a bricklayer and his kids were bricklayers, and I remember being quite envious of that because it was a very respectable job. It was a good job as well. You were never out of work. You earned pretty good money once you'd got to that stage. There was, you know, those guys did all right. And it was something people thought, wow, what a great job to have. Was it that maybe it was the, you know, if you don't go to university, there's something wrong with you mentality? Maybe that was where the rot set in.
I think there's been a problem in education being defined by academics.
100%.
An academic who haven't actually done any work with their hands and got their hands dirty effectively, don't understand the value of having workers. And we have the most disillusioned youth in the UK without work when we have a massive skill shortage. It doesn't make sense to me. We should be changing the education system.
Totally. And I still don't think schools we hark on about this quite a lot on this programme. I think schools say, oh, we do, we went through a stage where we only used to talk about, university is your only option, but now we've rebalanced it. I don't really believe they have. I think they quite like the Ofsted report that says 90% of our kids went to university. I think they still dwell on that rather than saying, look, if you want to get into mechanics, be a hairdresser, lay bricks for a living, these are worthy jobs, and you won't be out of work when you do those jobs. It's a trade you will always have. But I'm not speaking to many people, Elizabeth, where they have an experience of hearing teachers shout that very loudly.
We're not promoting construction in our schools at all.
Yeah.
My son's 23. He's just been through all of this. He trained to be an electrician at college. He's now a civil servant, but he was basically told, well, you can always be a labourer. And that's so dismissive of how hard people work in the industry.
Yeah.
But then that's another, it's hard work on a building site. It is dirty. It is cold in the winter. And that's not attractive to a lot of our young people. But actually having a bit of hard graft and building our way out of the crisis we're in is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. So so we can talk about planning all day long, and the fact that there's a bat's nest or something in a tree that's going to stop the housing estate being built, and there's a moody councillor who never signs anything. That's only part of the story, isn't it? There's a bigger part of this story.
It totally is, and adding 300 extra planners is less than one per local authority. That is not going to solve the planning crisis. If we want to speed up planning, we need more lawyers to process these Section 106s, and they're the main reason that planning gets held up for many years. It's the negotiation of those agreements. Those agreements require affordable housing most of the time. That's now undeliverable. We have tens of thousands of brand new empty homes standing empty in the UK because there aren't providers for them. It's absolutely outrageous.
When you say provide, so what do you mean by providers, Elizabeth?
Housing associations.
Oh, housing associations that can administer the houses and work out who gets what.
50% of affordable and social housing in the UK used to be provided up until about 3 years ago by Section 106 agreements, which quite rightly take the need that a local authority identifies and says that the developer has to provide those as part of an overall development. But we've now got to a crazy situation where the housing associations are trying to fix their broken stock, and they don't have the financial capacity or the desire to take on these units.
Wow.
There's lots of concerns over quality. There's lots of concerns over mix. And we have the situation where builders cannot get housing associations to take the units. And that holds up delivery of the private units as well.
Yeah, of course it does. So the government figure is 1.5 million homes by the end of this Parliament. What, in your mind, can you imagine a number that's more realistic than that?
I think you've got to take a third off of that at least, and that's with a willing market, which I don't think we have. The stamp duty changes, the budget, I think personally we'll have a slowdown by next summer, and it's going to get a lot worse.